There is a 23-foot doorway carved into solid rock in the Peruvian Andes. It was carved with geometric precision into red sandstone, nearly 13,000 feet above sea level. The niche at its center fits one person exactly. And behind it, there is nothing. No passage, no chamber, no tunnel, just rock. Archaeologists have known about it for decades. Charles Stanish at the University of South Florida has studied this region for over 30 years, and not one formal excavation has ever been conducted. The question is not what this doorway is. The question is why no one with the tools to investigate it has ever tried. The site is called Aramu Muru. It sits on the western face of Hyslop Mountain, 35 kilometers southeast of the city of Puno in southern Peru. The nearest paved road ends kilometers before you reach it. From there, you walk. The terrain is loose volcanic rock and sparse ichu grass, the kind that grows above the tree line where almost nothing else survives. There is no visitor center, no signage from Peru's Ministry of Culture, no archaeological survey marker, no guardrail, no ticket booth, no interpretive panel explaining what you are about to see. At 3,900 meters above sea level, roughly 12,800 feet, the air is thin enough that most visitors feel the altitude within minutes. The landscape around the mountain is open altiplano, stretching in every direction toward the western shore of Lake Titicaca, which is visible from higher ground as a deep blue line on the horizon, roughly 80 kilometers to the east. The doorway itself measures 7 meters wide and 7 meters tall, a perfect square carved into a natural cliff face of red sandstone. At the center of this square sits a T-shaped niche, approximately 2 meters high and 0.9 meters wide. A person of average height can stand inside it, with room to spare. On the right side of the niche, there is a small circular depression roughly the size of a human fist. It has been documented by visitors and researchers, but never formally analyzed. And here is what separates Aramu Muru from every other pre-Columbian site in Peru. There is no construction debris anywhere near the doorway. Every major Inca building project in the Andes left traces. Machu Picchu still has visible quarry marks on unfinished stones. Sacsayhuaman has half-cut blocks abandoned along the hillside. Ollantaytambo has a quarry 6 kilometers away with dressed stones that never made it to the temple. These sites are littered with the evidence of human labor. Aramu Muru has none of it. No chipped stone, no discarded tools, no organic material like rope or wood that could be carbon dated. The geology confirms the carving is real. The sandstone is genuine and relatively soft, workable with stone, bone, or even hardwood tools. This is not a case of impossible precision. The rock itself could have been shaped by any of the civilizations that lived in this region over the past 2,000 years. The mystery is not how it was carved. The mystery is that whoever carved it left absolutely nothing behind. In 1996, a tour guide named José Luis Delgado Mamani reported finding the doorway after following a route described in his family's oral tradition. By then, locals in the Puno region had known about the site for generations, but no professional archaeologist had ever surveyed it. And that absence matters because the Titicaca Basin is one of the most intensely studied archaeological zones in all of South America. To understand why Aramu Muru exists, we need to look at who lived in this region before the Inca ever arrived. And that story begins over 1,000 years earlier, on the opposite shore of Lake Titicaca. The civilization of Tiwanaku rose near the southern shore of Lake Titicaca, in what is now Bolivia, around 200 BC. By 500 AD, their influence stretched across a territory covering parts of modern Peru, Bolivia, Chile, and Argentina. Their capital city, also called Tiwanaku, sits at 3,850 meters above sea level and once held an estimated population of between 10,000 and 20,000 people. The stone architecture at Tiwanaku is staggering. The Akapana Pyramid, the largest structure at the site, originally stood over 17 meters tall and was built from an estimated 30,000 cubic meters of fill material faced with precisely cut andesite blocks. The Gateway of the Sun, carved from a single block of andesite weighing approximately 10 tons, features a central figure now identified as the staff god, surrounded by 48 winged attendants. The subterranean temple complex includes carved stone heads embedded in the walls at regular intervals, each face distinct. This level of precision and monumental ambition influenced every culture that followed in the Andes for the next 1,000 years. Charles Stanish, who spent over 3 decades researching the Titicaca Basin from the University of South Florida and previously from the University of Chicago, has proposed that Aramu Muru may predate the Inca entirely and could have connections to the Tiwanaku period. Stanish documented an extensive Tiwanaku pilgrimage network around Lake Titicaca. Pilgrims traveled from the city of Tiwanaku to the Island of the Sun, a journey that took approximately 2 weeks on foot, with ritualized stops along the way. At the Koa Reef near the Island of the Sun, Stanish's team recovered gold medallions and spondylus shell offerings from underwater excavations. These were not everyday objects. Spondylus shells had to be imported from the coast of Ecuador, over 1,000 kilometers away. They were among the most valuable ritual items in the pre-Columbian Andes. Aramu Muru sits on a geographic line that could represent a secondary branch of this pilgrimage route. That connection has not been formally published, but the geography aligns. Tiwanaku collapsed around 1000 AD, likely because of a prolonged drought. Into that power vacuum stepped the Lupaca. This is where existing YouTube videos on Aramu Muru get the history wrong. Nearly every video labels this region as Inca territory. It was not. The Lupaca were an independent Aymara-speaking kingdom centered on the western shore of Lake Titicaca, with their royal seat at Cotimbo and their provincial capital at Chucuito. Archaeologist John Hyslop from the American Museum of Natural History conducted the only systematic archaeological survey of Lupaca territory in 1977, documenting 52 individual sites across the southwestern Titicaca Basin. The Spanish colonial census of 1567, recorded using the Inca Quipu system, counted the Lupaca population at approximately 100,000 people. They were not a minor group. They built the Chulpa funerary towers that still stand across the Altiplano, cylindrical stone structures up to 12 meters tall, designed to house the mummified remains of Lupaca elites. The Chulpas at Silustani, less than 50 kilometers from Aramu Muru, are among the finest pre-Columbian mortuary monuments in South America. The Lupaca did not bury their dead underground. They placed them above the earth, facing east, toward the rising sun. Death for the Lupaca was not an ending. It was a transition. And they built monumental architecture specifically to mark that threshold. They controlled this territory for over 300 years before the Inca Emperor Pachacuti conquered them around 1463. The Inca held this region for less than 70 years before the Spanish arrived, and the conventional Inca explanation for Aramu Muru, that it was simply an unfinished construction project abandoned when priorities shifted, has a serious problem. The Inca abandoned construction sites regularly. The fortress of Sacsayhuaman above Cusco took over 60 years to build and was never fully completed. But the Inca never cleaned up after themselves. Every abandoned project from Cusco to Quito left behind cut stones, ramps, drag marks, and tool fragments. Aramu Muru is spotless. If the Inca started carving this doorway and then stopped, They would have been the first Inca work crew in recorded history to remove every trace of their own labor. 3 civilizations occupied this territory across 2,000 years, and not one of them left a single written record explaining what this carved doorway was for. But there is a pattern. To see it, we need to leave South America entirely. If you have been watching our investigations into ancient sites that defy conventional explanation, you know we do not stop at the surface. If this kind of deep archaeological research is what you come to this channel for, take a moment to subscribe and make sure you do not miss what comes next, because what we are about to show you has never been connected to Aramu Muru in any existing video. In the Egyptian Old Kingdom, roughly 2700 BC to 2200 BC, builders carved what archaeologists call false doors into the stone walls of mastaba tombs. These were not functional entrances. They were flat reliefs carved to look like doors, complete with lintels, jambs, and recessed panels. The tomb of Tai at Saqqara, dating to the 5th dynasty around 2400 BC, contains one of the best preserved examples. The false door is carved from a single limestone slab, painted to resemble an open passage, and positioned on the western wall of the offering chamber. West, in Egyptian cosmology, was the direction of the dead. The Ka, the soul of the deceased, was believed to pass through this sealed doorway to receive offerings left by the living on a stone table placed directly in front of it. Hundreds of these false doors have been documented across the Memphite necropolis. They were never meant to open. They were thresholds between 2 worlds that only the dead could cross. In Lycia, on the southern coast of modern Turkey, a different civilization carved tombs directly into cliff faces during the 4th century BC. Many of these tombs feature carved stone doors in their facades. The doors are decorative. They do not swing. They do not lead anywhere. They are sealed representations of a passage that only the dead were meant to use. In Petra, in modern Jordan, the Nabatean civilization carved elaborate facades into sandstone cliffs beginning around the 4th century BC. The stone at Petra is remarkably similar to the stone at Aramu Muru. Both are sedimentary sandstone. Both carry distinctive red and orange coloring from iron oxide content, and both were shaped by carving into natural cliff faces rather than building upward from quarried blocks. The most famous facade at Petra, Al-Khazneh, stands 40 meters tall and was carved directly into the rock face in the 1st century BC. Its doorway leads into a relatively small, undecorated chamber barely 12 meters square. The exterior is the monument. The interior is almost irrelevant. The door exists to be seen, not to be walked through. 4 civilizations, 3 continents, separated by thousands of years and thousands of kilometers. And all 4 carved doors into solid rock that were never designed to function as physical entrances. No archaeologist has formally proposed a direct connection between these traditions. The Egyptians, the Lycians, the Nabateans, and whoever carved Aramu Muru almost certainly had no contact with each other. But the architectural impulse is identical, a door for beings that do not need a physical opening, a threshold between the world of the living and something else. And then there is the legend, the one that explains the circular depression carved into the niche, and the one artifact the Spanish never found. The name itself contains a clue that no existing video on this topic has explained. Amaru is not a personal name. It is the Quechua word for serpent. Specifically, it refers to the mythical water serpent, the creature that in Tiwanaku cosmology represented the boundary between the upper world and the lower world, between the living and the dead. Muru translates roughly to spotted or patterned. So Amaru Muru is not the name of a person. It is a title, the Serpent Keeper. the guardian of the threshold between worlds. The legend tells of an Inca priest who fled the city of Cusco during the Spanish conquest in the 1530s. He carried with him a golden disc, described in the oral tradition as one of the most sacred objects in the Inca Empire. This is not a fantasy. The Coricancha, the Temple of the Sun in Cusco, was the religious center of the entire Inca civilization. Its walls were literally plated in sheets of gold. At the center of the main chamber hung a massive golden sun disk that caught the morning light and reflected it across the interior. When Francisco Pizarro's forces entered the Coricancha in November 1533, they stripped the gold from the walls in a single afternoon. Pizarro's secretary, Pedro Sancho de la Hoz, recorded the looting in official dispatches sent back to the Spanish crown. The gold from the Coricancha alone weighed 700 kilograms. It was melted into ingots and divided among the soldiers. But several chroniclers noted that not all of the temple's sacred objects were accounted for. Some had been removed before the Spanish arrived. Historians have documented multiple cases of Inca priests who smuggled sacred objects out of temples across the empire during the conquest. The legend of Amaru Muru fits within a documented historical pattern. According to the oral tradition, the fleeing priest reached the doorway at Hyslop and placed the golden disc into the circular depression in the niche. The stone responded with blue light, and a tunnel appeared. The priest walked through and was never seen again. The disc remained embedded in the rock, or so the legend says, and was eventually removed or lost. The Spanish, upon encountering the site, renamed it Puerta del Diablo, the Devil's Door. This was not unique to Aramu Muru. The colonial administration systematically renamed indigenous sacred sites with demonic labels. It was a deliberate strategy, documented in the chronicles of the extirpation campaigns, designed to sever indigenous populations from their spiritual geography. The golden disc was never recovered. Either it was hidden too well, or it went somewhere the conquistadors could not follow. And there is one more detail that no one has explained. No formal excavation has ever been conducted at Aramu Muru, not by the Peruvian Ministry of Culture, not by any international archaeological team, not by Charles Stanish, who spent more than 30 years documenting hundreds of sites across the Titicaca Basin. Mohammed Firoz Khan at Aligarh Muslim University has published comparative analysis of carved stone traditions across the Andes, and noted that the carving style at Aramu Muru deviates slightly from typical Tiwanaku design conventions. But his analysis was conducted from photographs, not from fieldwork at the site. Visitors and independent researchers have reported unusual acoustic properties near the doorway, where sound reflects in unexpected patterns off the carved surfaces. Certain frequencies appear to resonate within the T-shaped niche in ways that differ from the surrounding uncarved rock. Similar acoustic anomalies have been documented at other megalithic sites, including Newgrange in Ireland and the Hypogeum of Halsaflieni in Malta, where carved chambers produce measurable resonance at specific frequencies. At Aramu Muru, these reports have not been formally studied. There is no published acoustic survey. There is no ground-penetrating radar scan of the cliff face behind the doorway. There is no stratigraphic analysis of the surrounding soil. There is no attempt to recover microscopic tool marks from the carved surface that might identify which culture did the carving and when. The basic archaeological fieldwork that could answer the most fundamental questions about this site has simply never been done. We showed you what happens when scientists finally scan a site. Everyone thought they understood. The results from Machu Picchu changed what we knew about who built it and why. Aramu Muru has never received that scrutiny. The geology is accessible. The site is reachable. The technology to analyze it has existed for decades. In 1996, José Luis Delgado Mamani followed a childhood dream to a mountainside near Lake Titicaca. He found a door carved into red sandstone. It was sealed, and in nearly 30 years since, no one with the tools to open it has tried. Maybe the answer is that there is nothing behind the stone. Maybe the doorway was always meant to be closed. Or maybe, like the Egyptian false doors and the Lycian tomb facades and the carved cliffs of Petra, this was never a door for the living to walk through. It was a door for something else. And the civilizations that carved it understood that some thresholds are not meant to be crossed. They are meant to be witnessed